Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. And I got an amazing episode planned. Hopefully, my guest joins, but if not, I've got my buddy in the back that runs admin for me on quite a few occasions. So, either way, we're going to have a show. We're going to have an amazing conversation, and we're going to take things off. So, bear with me for about 10 seconds, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. So, like I said, my guest this evening is supposed to be Rachel Arnold. I don't know where she's at right now, but that's okay. We're going to continue the show on. I got with me this evening Devin, who has always been amazing, been in the background, does a lot of stuff for me when I need him to. Devin, it's been a while since you've even been backstage. So, how you been, homie?
Good, man. Busy. Life and work and all that stuff. So, been good. How
So,
about you? How's the
dude,
surgery?
other than the surgery and freaking dealing with the fact that I have one arm and it's not even my dominant arm right now,
Yeah.
doing all right. Now this conversation is supposed to be about partnerships and things of that nature, both within organizations, and I would even say in general in your network and stuff like that. You work for an MSSP or an MSP, one of the two. I work for an MSSP, and partnerships kind of make the organization go round. That's how sales are made. That's how deals are done. That's how you really decide what technologies you're going to sell and support and things like that. So, you know what, William? Hush your mouth.
Just clap
But
like that.
with that being said, like, what do you how do partnerships work? Like, do you have a ton of partners where you guys where you work, or is it something that you even have any say in? How's that all work out?
Yeah. So, I've had, especially on the security side, because I do work for an MSP, but I handle basically the security side for the MSP. And we have a lot of partnerships with vendors and stuff like that. That we work with closely there, and then we try to consider all of our clients as partners as well, right? As a partner, we partner with them to make sure their business thrives and everything, and they partner with us, and that just makes it the best for both worlds. Um, I think it's super important. I have a fantastic example of a partner dropping the ball based on a vulnerability that came up that we were discussing this week, and I was going back and forth with Screen Connect. I'm sure you've heard that vulnerability that just came up. We found out about it through just the news, a post. We didn't hear anything. They never alerted anything to us. We don't use it as like a main. It's kind of like a backup service for us, so it's not our main connection tool. But nonetheless, and when we reached out, they said, "Oh, you guys weren't affected. Anybody that was affected, we reached out to." And I just didn't feel like, because we consider that a partnership. I was like, I just didn't feel like that was a good model to have. I thought, hey, they should have at least reached out and said, "Hey, we found this vulnerability. We're working on it. We're patching it." I get that they don't disclose everything about it. That I understand, but nonetheless, we didn't even hear anything. And when we reached out, they were like, "Oh yeah, no, it didn't affect you guys," but they never told
By
us
the way,
one
this
way or
came
another.
out, but we're not going to tell you about it because we don't think you're vulnerable.
Yeah,
That goes back to I think there's been other vendors that do that too. They look at like who's potentially vulnerable
yeah,
without considering the fact that, yeah, so maybe the main server got updated, but or the some of the main systems, but there's other systems out there that could be on older versions, different versions. I mean, look at Log4j.
yeah,
Log4j, when that came out, it was like, well, if you're on this version, you're not technically vulnerable, but if you're like between these versions and just all this other stuff. So like I think companies really need to take a look at it when you get into these partnerships, and every vulnerability that comes out, all those details need to be released to your partners.
absolutely.
It, I mean, especially if you're going to release it to the public, then you should give your partners a heads up. Like, what do I need to do to fix this if I'm vulnerable? Let me decide if I'm vulnerable.
Right.
You tell me what versions, you tell me what the issue is, and let me decide if it falls into the realm of things I need to fix or mitigate. Um, and I think that's a big issue. I think we're going to see more of that, where companies just don't want to notify people on under the guise of, well, you're not vulnerable to this, so you're good.
Yeah,
What makes you say that? Like,
for sure.
where do you think I'm not vulnerable? Because I have systems that you can't see. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that fear factor of, oh, that puts a bad stamp, especially like 18 months ago. They had another issue with an incident that occurred for self-hosted instances of Screen Connect. But I think it on in all these companies, it comes down to, oh, how many people are going to drop our services because that the I mean the the space is so vast for that type of stuff. It's easy to I say it's easy. It's easy to switch. It's a pain in the ass to switch from a service provider and switch everybody over to new infrastructure and all that. But I mean, like a CrowdStrike situation on a smaller service provider that provides that type of service, if something were to happen, I mean, that could run them into the ground
I'm
if they
actually
lose anything.
surprised CrowdStrike didn't lose more
Yeah,
business
for sure.
and
Agree.
was still able to maintain profit margin that quarter and that year,
Yeah.
um, off of that. Because the same thing happened to McAfee. I remember working for Department of Energy when the McAfee one happened, and it bricked blue screen tons of even government systems. And so I completely understand. Like, yeah, it happens. And again, I know we're talking about partners, but even when I look at security as a whole, everybody expects things to be perfect and work all the time and never fail and never have an issue. But nothing's perfect in security. It's still a guess. It's still a
Oh,
we're gonna
1000%.
do the best we can. It's still a risk, like, and especially when you're talking money, because now we gotta present something to a CFO or CRO or a CEO and like, here's the risk, here's how much the cost. So, you look at your cost benefit. Um, so no matter what you do, nothing is perfect. There's always going to be flaws somewhere.
For
I,
sure.
I, and so for people to expect things to just be perfect blows my mind.
No, no, and I don't ever expect anybody to be perfect, but it's again, like you said, the whole partnership thing there. Whenever something happens, inform your partners, inform, your clients, give them as much information as you can without, disclosing anything. I get it's not going to be the day that it happens, but don't let them find out from the news. That's not at all
Mm.
how you want somebody that and that's how we found out. I knew nothing about it, then we see it and I start looking into it and I'm like, okay, I start checking my emails. I'm like, oh, is there anything sent to me that I just missed? Because I mean, I'm busy. Sometimes I see it and I think it's just a marketing or a
Yeah.
salesy type thing. And so I go back through and look at it and there's nothing. They're like, oh yeah, when we reached out, they're like, oh, it didn't affect you guys. That's why we didn't reach out. I was like, that's not how you do that. I was like, you reach out and say, hey, we ran into this issue. It doesn't look like it's affected you. Here's kind of the roundabout high level details of it. You guys should be good, but just so you know, this happened. And it happened like whenever they ran the patch for it, that was April 24th. So that was well over a month ago before anything even came out. And that was after the investigation that they brought Mandiant in to do the investigation was completed that pointed out, Mandiant was who said, hey, this is what you need to do to patch and fix and get it resolved. So who knows how long it was before that? January, February, maybe?
Well, I think that goes for a lot of things, though. It doesn't come out. They never want to release anything to the public until they know the depth of it
Sure.
and the breadth of the entire situation, which I understand.
For sure.
But you should still notify your partners. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in. They treat partners as the general public,
Yeah.
and it should not be that way. The moment you know something is wrong,
Yep.
talk to your partners that have this because they may be dealing with the same situation and they need to get ahead of it. Um, but you can delay releasing it to the public. And again, per regulation, right? Finance and healthcare and insurance and critical infrastructure, everything's different. But SOX, things like that. But I think from a standpoint of notification, sure, delay the public as much as you feel you need to. But your partners, the people that use your stuff, the
Yeah.
people that are in business with you need to notify like right away. Because if they're compromised now, they need to find out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And another it was kind of the week for like I guess me to have some experiences in this whole partnership type thing. So a client of ours started getting just basic phishing emails, but it was coming from a legit email that somebody that they do business with that was compromised. And I could see basic stuff. We see a lot of it. So I reached out to that company and I'm like, hey, X, Y, and Z user looks to be compromised. They're sending emails. This is what it is. And they're like, oh, I could tell automatically they knew something was up. They're like, oh, that person's not hacked. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they are. I was like, I just wanted to let you guys know and inform you if you have the phone number of your IT person, the whoever services your IT infrastructure, let me know. I'll call and talk to them, send them some information. And they did not want to disclose anything. It was like, hey, I'm just trying to be nice. I was like, I'm just letting you know right now, I'm blocking your entire domain until we know this is fixed. So
Yeah.
no one in your organization is going to be able to send communication with them. I'm just trying to be nice, kind of that whole partnership thing. I don't want to see anybody's business, have any more detrimental harm come to it. And I want to let them know and get to the bottom of it. But they're trying to, just like that, play it close to the chest. We don't want anybody to know. We don't want it to get out there. We're not going to admit anything. Don't even want to acknowledge the fact that it was happening. And I think that just blows my mind. It's like, I'm not going to go and start putting it on social media or trying to report it. And this is a health company. So, I mean, they had PHI that they needed to protect and they should be disclosed. I mean, that's stuff that they have to disclose, when they have a compromise and they're not wanting to say anything about it. I'm like, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I think this is the big issue, and actually, AI says it. They're not going to admit fault. They're going to take their time and if they have to patch it for free. But if they can charge you for any services, they're going to act like someone is about to die if you don't pay for their service.
Yep.
And I think that's very true. Like it's one of those things, especially working in an MSSP, whether it's partner deals, clients, which, like you said, we treat clients as partners. We want the best for them. They should want the best from us, and vice versa, things like that. Um, Everything becomes an emergency. Everything is like do or die,
A
life or
fire.
death. Like, hey, this new vulnerable, and I'm not gonna lie. Back when I first retired out of the army and I was working for an organization, it was kind of the same way, right? I looked at when Meltdown Inspector came out. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to figure it out, and the people I worked with were like, "Dude, that like it's not even that bad." He's like, "You legitimately, in order to exploit this, is like a 1 in 1 million occurrence, and you have to have like physical access, like all this stuff." I was like, "So it's nothing to worry about." But like I wanted to discuss it and have those conversations, and I thought it was more than what it really was. So I've been there, but I think now
Yeah.
with the experience that we have in this industry, man, people need to quit treating everything as an emergency. But at
Yeah.
the same time, they need to treat certain things as an emergency. And it
Right.
becomes this whole thing. It's either all or nothing. Either everything's an emergency or nothing is. And you can't do that. You have to look at what's actually going on.
For sure. Yeah. No, I mean that type of thing makes people make stupid decisions on both ends. Whether you treat everything as an emergency, then you're making stupid decisions and making mistakes and shutting things down that shouldn't be shut down, or alerting an adversary that you're in there so they set off the thing before you can really secure the environment, make sure it don't spread. I mean, there's so many different avenues of the way to look at exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, I think it's just pivotal that we have that partnership. We communicate well on both ends, not only with our clients but also with our vendors, and then our vendors with us. And we have some vendors that are fantastic. They let us know
Right.
everything. They reach out and they're like, "Oh, hey, we got this. Recent update." They're constantly looking into our stuff. Like we see a few devices that aren't updated to the latest stage yet, whatever it may be, and they're really, really good about that. But then you have the others that they just want to get that check from you every single month. They don't care what you do with it. They're not there looking out for your best interest or your client's best interest. And I think that goes with like partnerships, like me and you, us being friends, having discussions, being able to talk, all that, pointing each other in the right direction. You giving me advice, me potentially giving you some advice, like in the personal I guess, personal business space, and then also in that full-time business space. Like it's a weird navigation plane.
Well, it is, and so even when you look at those personal relationships and the partnerships that come from them, that type of kind of discussion needs to be allotted for, right? And I tell a lot of people this: the best conversations I've ever had, when I was in the military, it was at the smoke pit. That's when business got done, right?
Right.
You'd sit there, you'd have these discussions over a cigarette and just, but it was more, it wasn't professional, right?
Right.
You'd be able to, and AI can
Like bar
speak to this,
talk.
right?
It's like bar talk.
Yeah, you would sit there, you just be like, hey, homie, look, this is messed up. Like, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or
Yep.
else this is gonna break, or this is gonna happen, or whatever. Um, and these days, when I go to like conferences and have discussions with people, a lot more effort, a lot more value is added when it's at a bar, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting down having a
Sure.
drink. And I remember explicitly, um few years back, I was working for a company, and one of our clients, um, there was a lot of, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Strenuous. It was a very strained relationship between us. And I remember going to a conference, me and this dude sitting down, and over a beer. Actually, we were both drinking way too much. But I looked at him and I was like, dude, I was like, you need to let go of the fucking reins. In these exact words. I don't care who's watching. This is exactly what I said to him, because when you're a few beers deep and a few sheets to the wind, it happens. But I was like, you need to let go of the fucking reins. You're a director. You need to be a director, not an engineer. Be a damn director.
Right.
Quit trying to control everything. Quit trying to have your hands on everything. Quit trying to be the know all, be all, do all for the entire organization. Like, you have a team, utilize them. And so a year later, me and him had a conversation, or 2 years later, something like that. And one, it was better for his mental health, because then he concentrated more on what his actual job was. And two, he found out that, this person ended up getting promoted. Like, there were issues. I'm not going to say there weren't, but he realized that he ended up doing what he needed to do, which was get his hands off the keyboard and be in leadership. You
Right.
can't do both in the civilian world. In the civilian world, you're either hands on keyboard or you're leadership.
Yeah.
If you're leadership, the only time your hands should be on the keyboard is if all your engineers fail. And if all your engineers are failing, or analysts or whatever, that means you failed, because you're not teaching them, you're not training them, you're not helping them get better.
Right.
And so that was the best conversation I ever had. I couldn't have that over a corporate call, because, well, you got to be professional, and you got to, the client cares. You got to care about the client, and you got to baby them. And you got to, no, no. In a real life setting, you sit down and you have an actual conversation. And the
Hmm.
actual conversation is not going to be polite. It's going to be blunt. It's going to be straightforward. And either they want to hear it or they don't.
Yeah.
I've gotten more work done over a beer, and it developed better relationships over a beer than ever being on a corporate call. Even where I work now, a lot of the partnerships and relationships I've built have been like, you know what? I'd hit them up on LinkedIn. Give me a call myself. We're gonna solve this issue,
Right.
because I can't do it on this call. There's 30 different people on this call. It's not gonna happen. I want to let's have a call, and it's worked. And I've never had that fail. Doesn't matter if they want to hear it at that point. No, it really doesn't, dude. On a professional call, on a work call, when you're dealing with partners, you have to be professional. You have to basically coddle them and try to be nice and try to do all these things. Now, granted, I'm not in executive leadership, right? I don't have the ability to just fire people, or fire vendors or clients or whatever. I can't just say, "Oh, we're not going to deal with you anymore." But on an engineer and as a manager, I do have that ability to call and figure out what the hell is really going on. But I will never do that shit over a corporate medium, because the words that are going to come out of my mouth, I don't want recorded. Because the last thing I need is my company hearing that shit and being like, "Oh, well, you can't talk to people like that." The hell, like, did I? Did we save this client? Yes, we did. Yes, we absolutely did because of me. And it was not, and it's because I was me. When they're strategic partners, you should be having one-on-ones with them to give them feedback, set expectations, and level set. Strategic partners, Gabriel, yes. While at the same time, strategic clients, yes. Well, I guess partners, clients should be the same thing. Um, the problem comes down, it still becomes a professional issue. I find a lot of companies, not companies, correction, individuals that you have to deal with that are the final sign off. Um, I don't know that this whole professionalism in the workplace when it comes to this stuff, deals don't get done and work doesn't get accomplished over being professional. It gets accomplished over being real and telling people how it really is and how things need to go. Um, maybe it's just me, but I legitimately have gotten more accomplished by being myself and saying what's on my mind and telling people how things really need to go versus coddling and babying people and trying to be a salesperson and just being like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah, we'll do this for you. Yeah, yeah, absolutely." No, that it doesn't address risk. It doesn't address the issues. It doesn't address the problem, and you end up throwing your people under the bus. I,
Yeah. And I think that that comes back to that partnership when you're partnering with like your clients or vendors or whatever, they got to be a good fit, right? You guys got to have the same mindset, you got to have the same kind of values, the same understanding. They've got to buy into that type of stuff too cuz like in our industry, we've all had those clients that they want the cheapest thing. They don't, they want to be secure, but they don't want to pay for it. And
yeah,
obviously as on our end, we don't want to charge them astronomical prices and just bend them over for it. We're trying to give them a fair
I don't
service.
know. Some companies really do. You've seen
Right.
Splunk, right? That's true.
Right. I'm just saying in a realistic fashion. We want to be realistic, but we expect them to be realistic too and take our advice and say, and if they need this additional service to function or this enhanced security feature, whatever it may be for compliance, whatever it is, like they should trust us and not push back. I mean, I get it. They're going to push back and want justification there for it, but we shouldn't have to, we shouldn't be fighting for that type of stuff and have to, especially like what you're talking about, like have to try to baby the client and give them and give into whatever they want. That's kind of one thing I like about the company, like that I work for currently is like if the client doesn't align with us and isn't going to kind of understand that we're giving them the best advice that we think they should have to run their business, keep it secure, and everything that they need to run smooth, then they're just not a good fit. And we're going to let them go. Kind of like one of
Well, and
those
that's the
things.
thing, right? Like, and you got to look at it from a standpoint of consultancy. And this is where, when I deal with any partner, when I deal with any client, um, I'm going to give you my best advice, the best way I think things should go. If you are an engineer on that job, and let's just say you work for the company I work for, then you're going to sit back and you're going to wait for them to okay it. If they don't okay it, you don't do it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to.
Yep.
And so that's why I like the consultant space. Me and by consultant I mean no hands-on. Legitimately
Right.
like kind of CISO engineer level consulting where you go in, you give them best practices, what they should and shouldn't do, you do reports on kind of what their stance is and what it should be. Um and then you walk away. And the reason I like that space is because now you're not held accountable for their
Right.
inaction.
Right.
You have given them the advice they need. You have told them where they need to be and how to get there and what the needs are. It's on them whether or not they're going to take it.
Right.
And then you walk away.
Yep.
Um, as an engineer, some of the clients, I mean, you're the one that has to do the work. But again, the client still has to approve that work. So you're
100%.
like, I really want to do this. You could push the button and go and be done in 2 seconds. But at the end of the day, it's not your decision. The
Yeah.
client still needs to authorize what you're doing. And it becomes a headache sometimes if it's not a true partnership. If it's not like, hey, We want to take you. Tell me what your advice is, what the best steps forward are. You let me know, and then we'll just put through the CR. We'll put through the change request and go with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they fight you on it. They're like, well, well, we really shouldn't do that. Or if you recommend not to do something because you know that it's just noise, right? You
Yeah.
know, it's just the way their architecture is, it just doesn't make sense to do. But then they're like, oh no, turn it on. Are you sure? Because
Right.
the way you're running things right now, my analysts are going to be busy closing dumbass shit.
Yeah.
They're going to be a little
Yeah.
tied up,
And I think
and they're
that,
going to miss something important. And they're
and I
like,
think,
yeah, we need it. We need all the visibility and all the things, including IT related stuff,
right.
even though no one IT is getting into this system.
Right.
What? Like,
Yeah.
that makes no sense.
And I think kind of what you're talking about there goes both ways too. You've got like those companies that we were talking about that just try to bend over anybody they can to get the most amount of money at them and throw ridiculous amounts of tools and systems and monitoring on stuff that they don't need. That puts a bad taste in clients' mouth, and then they don't trust anybody after that. They're like, oh, then that gives that pushback or that, kind of hesitation whenever someone does tell them. They're like, well, this last company told me this, 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 and this. And they're like, well, you try to come in and be that the realistic perspective in it. Like, no, you didn't necessarily need this, but you do need this. Well, now why do I need this? So now they're questioning. So
Hmm.
it's hard, and you're always going to have that, but it's nice to get those clients. And we do have some of those clients that are like, hey, we want to put security first. We want to put best practices, I guess I should say, first, and what are your recommendations? What's that price point at? And then you can work with them. And honestly, like those type of clients, we have some that are such good clients that they're like, honestly, we just can't afford to do that right now, and we'll work with them. We'll
Yeah.
honestly be like, hey, let us give you like a little bit of a break. We'll slowly ramp into this type of stuff, and it always works. And
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, right? When you develop these true partnerships where they actually listen to you and you listen to them. But this comes down to it, and I hate to say it, a lot of it comes down to the sales and how the sale was made.
yeah,
Did the client feel like they were upsold,
right,
right? Like, do they feel valued? Do they feel like they were heard? Um, there's some really, really, really good salespeople out there, and
for
and
sure.
and they're damn good at what they do,
Yeah,
but they also know the technology and they know security or IT, whatever it is they're
yeah,
selling, right? They actually know it backwards and forwards. So when they sell something, or they get into these conversations, it's not a I'm going to read off a script and just ask these questions or da da da. No, they've been engineers. They've been in these situations. They know what they're talking about. So I think when it comes to certain partners and clients that we deal with, the partner managers and the salespeople, you get more value when they actually have an understanding of the industry and what they're trying to
oh,
sell.
absolutely, absolutely,
The ones that are just damn good salespeople that can sell ice to an Eskimo but don't know what ice is, um, those are the ones I struggle with
yeah.
because, yeah, they're charismatic. They can sell anything, but they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So then you end up screwing over your engineers or your analysts or your IT people or whatever because now they got to do all this work because as a salesperson, you sold the sun and we can offer the sand.
Yeah.
Like, so it becomes a back and forth, and that's when it's in inside the organization that there's a problem, not necessarily you and the client.
Yeah, and just to speak on that, like I don't think every salesperson needs to be super knowledgeable, have a basic understanding of it. But if you can't answer a lot of the technical questions, in which I've had a good experience with a lot of our partners, bring that technical person into the sales call with you,
Yes.
and that's
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I'm like that. I've had that occur on a bunch. I've had it both ways, where a salesman jumps on there and says it'll do A, B, C, D, every single letter in the alphabet. It does it. You're good to go. Then you start working with the product, and you're like, this thing doesn't do shit. It can't do this. It can't do
Yep.
that. It doesn't do half the stuff they said. Then you get those ones that are like, hey, this is kind of a high level overview of it. Let me get one of our engineers on board on a call with you, and they can answer all your questions, go into details. We'll run through a full demo. And also, one thing I cannot stand out of a vendor is no NFR licensing for 60 or 90 days. Like
Oh, that
it's like, how do you
so
so how do you expect me to trust your product when I can't even test it in a real world environment?
as
You want me
as
to
an
put in a
MSP,
1 or 3-year contract.
MSSP, I think that NFRs should be limited to, well, it depends on the technology, right? So if it's an EDR, let's say,
Yeah,
it should be forever, right? For as long as you're a partner, but only so many
sure,
assets.
sure,
If
sure.
it's a SIM, same way, right? So many EPS, so many whatever. And again, it would differentiate based on the technology, but it shouldn't be limited on months.
Right.
No, I've seen some that are, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely seen some that are. But I think that in order to really figure out the technology, I'm sorry, I personally don't learn from looking at a computer screen. Meaning, I can't sit there, go through your online training and know exactly what the hell I'm doing. I
I need those
may
alerts to be triggering.
be able to read enough to pass the test and say, "Yeah, I'm certified in this." But if I've never touched it, then I'm gonna sit there and still look at it and go,
Yeah.
"How do I do this?
Yeah.
Like, how do I actually build this alarm? Like, how do I,
Right.
you know, configure this dashboard? What the hell is how do I write this query?" Like, whatever the case may be, which by the way, FYI, every freaking sim out there now coming out with fucking query languages, their own query languages, you can just go get bent. I
Right.
absolutely hate that. It's SQL, dude. Just freaking call it SQL. That's
Right.
all it is. Quit giving it your own name. It's freaking SQL. You're running a SQL database of some sort. KQL, CQL, you name it. All these query languages,
Right.
it's SQL.
Yeah. No, I agree. The I've got to be hands on with it. I've got to deploy it. I've got to play around with it. I've got hell when our last sim tool that we threw out there, we had it. They gave us, I think it was 60 or 90 days. I can't remember what it was. I'm, standing up attacks, doing whatever I can. I'm inside the system. I'm seeing what they look like, seeing how they respond, seeing if it picks them up. Because they're like, oh, we give you these baselines, these are the playbooks that we've already kind of got pre-built out into it and all that. And I'm like, okay, sure. You can tell me all you want, but until I start running some attacks on this thing, I'm not going to trust anything you tell me. I was like, you can sell me whatever you want, but I need to actually see it, test it, and do all those types of things.
Well, and then here's the other thing behind it, right? And this is why I get frustrated when sim vendors and EDR vendors and things like that say AI, machine learning, and all this other stuff. If your network is already compromised, then you're evaluating and baselining a compromised network,
Yep.
which means your AI and your ML doesn't mean shit to me
100%.
because you're learning off of that.
Yep.
The only way to learn off of good is to come
Start
in fresh
scratch.
to a known good network.
Everything from scratch.
Um, so the way some of these operate by learning off of what's there now is frustrating. Now there are some vendors out there that have known bad sources, right? Whether it's known bad hashes, C2 servers,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, um, TTPs, things like that from MITRE. I
Yeah.
got you. But if you're baselining a network and Joe Smith, in his first week, somebody's brute forcing his account and you're running UEBA and or password spraying or whatever the case may be. Oh, he fails logins 15 times a day before he actually logs in. It's a shitty baseline.
Yeah.
Sorry, that means your brute force attacks are not going to get caught.
Right.
They're just not. Demoing software can be hard sometimes. Have to be able to load real data and configure appropriately to get value. Not always straightforward. And if you don't buy, how to ensure your data is purged. Um, that's a tough one. So data being purged is really hard right now when it comes to cloud systems. You can't. Most sim vendors are cloud. Very few are on-prem. So your on-prem systems, like Logarithm, for instance, very easy, right? You destroy, you get rid of their indexer, their data processor, and whatever else is on-prem for them. Get rid of it, you're good to go. I think Splunk still has an on-prem service. Get rid of that, you're good to go. Um, some of your other software doesn't have on-prem or it's all cloud or whatever the case may be. I'm sorry, you can't guarantee your data is ever purged. I don't care what anybody tells you.
Right.
And again, I know we're talking about partners, but let's spin this around to a little bit of privacy. You can never guarantee your shit gets deleted.
Not unless
You
you
just can't.
physically destroy it yourself.
And if something is free, you're the currency.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether that's social media, a vendor. I've been to so many conferences in order to get into their drawings, right? Hey, we're going to give this away at this conference. You either got to give a business card or sign some form, which is going to set up an auto mailer.
Mm-hmm. And they are so annoying.
I really, 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 really hope you have a million email addresses when you go to those things and just get, or at least one that's just for that type of nonsense.
Yeah. What's bad is when they require a business email too. Like if they
So,
require a
what I have
business email
found,
on top of it,
the
that's
best is now, I don't know if Microsoft can do this, nor any other email provider except Google. Google is the only one I know can do this. If you add, so let's just say my email address was cyberwarrior@cyberwarriorstudios.com. If I put cyberwarrior plus spam at cyberwarriorstudios.com, and then I give that to any other vendor, right? It's still a corporate email, right? A company email, but I could just say anything that has this email address because what Google does is anything after starting at the plus sign
mm-hmm.
is ignored. It still comes to your email. So you set up forwarding email addresses that forward it straight to trash or wherever it's supposed to go. Like literally, the plus sign just says it's an identifier. It's an easy way to tag stuff whenever you sign up for things. So like if you're on Twitter, you would do Devin plus Twitter at I don't care.com.
Right.
And so now you can literally have a folder in your inbox that forwards anything that comes to that email address to your Twitter inbox. It's an easy or spam, trash, wherever you want it to go.
Right.
I'm trying to manage big data. Then come back to me. Non-SQL database. AI. Non-SQL databases definitely have their uses. I am not saying they don't. I am saying that every query language out there that I have used thus far is just SQL. The language itself is just SQL. I despise SQL, period. I've never been a database person. I hate when I have to search logs and that you have to use join and a bunch of other SQL commands. No, search for this. Like, I want to be able to right click on a host and say, search for all these IPs. I don't want to have to write an entire freaking script to search for shit.
See, this is where they could be using AI more. Like
Yes,
integrate AI into your log searches and really tune it for that and understanding how to take that English regular, I'm talking to a human being and I want to find this. This is what I'm looking for. This is the detection event that I see. Find everything related to this detection event on this device from this date range and then make that query work. Person that does that and can get that going, I mean, that's
absolutely.
how AI should be used.
Yeah, like so Sentinel, Splunk. Well, I refuse to use Splunk.
Yeah.
Splunk is sorry, way outside my pay range. Anybody that is a professional engineer slash analyst of Splunk that can do their searches, dashboards, and everything else they do, kudos to you because I can't. But Sentinel KQL is legitimately SQL. They call it custom query language because it's built into Sentinel, but it's SQL. Every fucking thing you write in there is relational databases that you need to be able to join or drop or whatever, right? Um, I haven't played with CQL, which is CrowdStrike's query language. So I don't know what that is, but something tells me it's just SQL again. Um, but again, it's the language to do the searches. You're searching a database. I much prefer easy searches. If I want to right click on a host and say, give me all alerts on this host, I don't want to have to go into an underlying platform and say, search this table for this host name. Like, I don't want to have to know every table in your freaking schema. I just want to search for this host name. That's all I want. And unfortunately, so many underlying platforms now are you have to know the schema and the tables you're searching from. To me, as an engineer, that's a problem. I get it. That's how they bring data in and store data, but make your searches easier. I should literally, from a GUI, be able to right click, say, give me all information related to this host or this IP or this C2 server or whatever the case may be. Give me everything you got.
Yeah.
Instead of knowing how to program or use databases because I barely passed my SQL database class.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I did take Oracle in college. Hated every minute of it.
I'm right there with you. It's horrible.
But hey Devin, I gotta step away for a quick second. Take the show.
Yep.
I'll be back in a minute.
I don't know what to say.
Anything, man. Anything
I don't
about
know what to do with
partners?
my hands.
You know how to do it. Actually,
I
AI,
know.
ask some questions. And Gabriel, there's like 28 people watching.
I
Some
know.
of them are on Twitter. Actually, most of them are on Twitter or X rather.
I watched
So
Talladega
ask your
Nights
questions,
the other night,
homies.
so
I'll be right back.
all right. So yeah, I think yeah, we kind of went on a tangent there with sim tools and databases and all that. But yeah, the partnerships, it's an interesting one. You have some good ones, you have some bad ones. The good ones are obviously awesome. But it just, I don't know, like going back to the ConnectWise and all that, just it blew my mind that they didn't at least alert everybody and finding out about that type of a breach that affected. This is the cloud side. So this is anybody that has the cloud hosted one that's hosted by them. So basically, from what they said, it made it seem like they had access to everybody's everybody's data in there from the release that came out. So those type of things that just blows my mind. That's something that should be disclosed, especially when there's potentially millions of people that are affected by that. Top 3 things a good partnership must have: trust, communication. What's the third one?
Trust, communication. What type of partnership? We talking
Respect.
client partnerships or vendor
Respect
partnerships?
too.
Respect would be the third one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think no matter what, respect would be the third one.
SLAs. Don't get me started on SLAs.
Oh, so shared goals. Shared goals is another good one.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
and the after you sign the contract, all third parties are good. There's some that are still good after you sign the contract too. Kaseya is not one of them. But
yeah. But so SLAs are interesting because if SLAs are not defined prior to the start, then it gets hairy because I
I
have
think that
dealt
falls under
with
the communication too, though, right?
it
SLA
does,
is the
but I have
communication.
dealt with some horrendous contracts
Yeah, oh,
where
absolutely.
SLAs were never defined. You effectively become staff aug, and you're not supposed to be, right? You're a managed service provider, and now they're like, "Hey, you're breaking SLA in our Jira or our ServiceNow or our whatever," right? Um, and that becomes very problematic because it's like, well, I don't have SLAs. In my SOW, I don't have an SLA. So I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna handle work as it comes in and close things. So SLAs are one of those things that I don't think are part of good partnership. I think it comes down to good scoping. If you're gonna be a managed service provider and you are managing any type of troubleshooting or support, SLAs need to be written out in the scope. They need to be in the SOW defined right away.
And I think that the SLA brings those 3 things together. Not only it brings the respect, or it brings the communication, and what was the other one? Shit, I already done forgot.
Trust.
Because if you should be able to see those 3 things in an SLA, right? If you can look through an SLA and be like, okay, it makes sense. It's not egregious. It's not ridiculous. They're not, trying to basically get out of anything within their SLA. They're giving us what you think is fair. But then again, that's all a gray area. What's fair to some may not be fair to the other. So I think that's
Yeah.
just where you have to that's again with having that alignment, having those same values, having that type of a relationship.
Well, and I think the hardest part too, right, is AI set is another one. Clear rules, right? Your
Yeah.
RACI charts. Who's responsible for what?
Yeah.
Um, from a managed service perspective, your vendors, what are they responsible for, right?
Yeah.
From a vendor perspective, some vendors they want to manage and maintain and everything about a SIM, and then you just become responsible for building alarms and doing basic tuning to make sure
Yeah.
it doesn't, overflow. But then others are like, hey, this SIM is yours, off to the races. Um, but then you look at your clients that you're doing business with, and what are they responsible for? If they have no security team other than maybe a CISO or a director or a VP or whatever, um, then you're responsible for everything.
Yep.
However, comma, in the scope of work, and I will come back to this with any client, any partner you do business with that has an SOW, define whether or not you're staff hog. If you are not staff hog, you do not report to that client or partner, whatever you want to call them. And you are not responsible for what they decide
Yeah.
to an extent.
Yeah.
If it's within scope and they say, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's within the scope of work, go for it. But if it's outside of that scope, take it up the chain and say, hey, this is outside of the scope of work.
Yep.
Plain and simple. Even if it's staff hog, even with staff hog, there is a scope of work of what you're responsible for.
Right. Right.
Do not
Yeah.
go outside that scope or else you're going to get burned. Sorry, it's going to happen. Clients are going to take advantage of you. If they can
Yep.
get away with one thing, it's a slippery slope, and they're going to continue to take advantage of you. And if you are in leadership and you allow your people to be taken advantage of, it's a bigger an issue.
No, that's just another area. If they want to do it, you charge them an hourly rate or whatever it is, and you say, hey, this isn't in the scope of work. We can absolutely do it for you, but our time is going to be build time and material. Whatever it takes us to do it, that's what it's going to be. It should be an additional cost. That's why you have SOWs and all that stuff to call out all that.
And I think that's where sometimes we're lacking with our clients and partners is those scopes. What
Yeah.
is and isn't in scope.
Yeah.
Um, engineers, even the best of the best, will feel like, and it comes down to us as leaders. Um, as a leader, you need to empower your people to be able to say no. That's outside of the scope of work. If
I
you have
love
an
that.
issue with it, take it up with my boss or his boss or her boss or whatever. Um, so uh, you know, if you're not empowering your people, they're just going to keep doing it and get ran over and then come to you and complain and be like, hey, yeah, I did all this. Well, why'd you do that? It's not within the scope. Well, because they asked me to. I don't care if they asked you to. Why didn't you say no? Well,
Yep.
because they're a client. I can't tell the client.
Yeah.
I got in so many arguments about that.
Yep.
Like,
I get in arguments with people about that all the time. Like, this is not something that we should be doing. This is outside. Like I had a guy the other day who was trying to do a search. I won't go into detail because it does involve some things that I probably can't talk about. They're
yeah,
trying to put items from a chat all together. The way it came out, it was broken up by date. And he was like, "Hey, he's like, I searched on Chat GPT, and it told me you can make a Python script to combine all of these chats into one." And I'm like, that is we're not programmers. That's not what we do. This is outside of our scope. And then I got with the account management on that team or for our team for that client there. And I was like, hey, we need to have a conversation. We need to have a meeting and align this guy with what it
right.
is that we actually do. But there's a lot of people that would have just spent an hour, 2 hours trying to do something that's not going to work. And
Me
it, and then you'll be in that.
as an engineer and even as a manager,
Yeah.
when you feel like you have the authority to say no, um, there were many times I've gone to
I fed
my
the
boss or
client
my
data into
bosses
Chat
with
GPT. Yeah, exactly. That's where you want to
right
put that data.
with issues about a client and been like, we need to fire them. We need to get rid of them. Like
Yep.
they're abusing us. There's things going on. We need to no, like,
Yep.
and it's like, well, no, because of X, Y, and Z, and this and the third. And it's like, fine. So then you end up doing dumbass stuff even after taking up the chain. And so, like for me, it got to a point even as a manager when I was even to this day a manager and an engineer where I'm just like, all right, cool. If that's what you want to do, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like you don't even question it. You like why or what's the point or until someone tells me I'm allowed to say no, I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to make the client happy and do what they want.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
becomes very problematic, and people will walk all over you and
Yeah.
abuse the shit out of you.
Yeah. And luckily, I was able, to in this situation, they were like, oh, absolutely, yeah, you don't do that. They had, the owner of the company even had my back and was like, absolutely not. That's not something we do. That's outside
Right.
of our service. And he got on a call with him and is like, I'm going to realign him to with what to where kind of our boundaries are of what we do. He shouldn't have been
Right.
doing what he was doing anyways. He was going way outside the realm, but
Well,
nonetheless,
but here's the thing, right? I think it comes down to a fact of like, was he wrong? Yes, but did he know better? No.
right, right,
And and at the same time, the way he looks at it, and I got engineers that think this way. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make the client happy.
yeah,
If that's what they're asking for, sure, I'll go through and do it real quick. Like if it's not gonna be more than an hour
yeah,
or 30 minutes or whatever, right? They're gonna put a time limit on it. As long as it doesn't take up an entire day, then I'm just gonna go do this real quick, knock it out, and be done. Um, and so then, but that's when again it comes down to the leaders to talk to their people and be like, hey, what are you doing today? What'd you do for this client today? What'd you do for this client? When you find out, you're like, you should not be doing this.
yeah,
Do me a favor, read the SOW and send it to them.
yeah,
Because your engineer should always understand, or analyst, and again, depending on the role, if it's a managed service or even if it's a organization, there's always going to be a scope of work for certain things that need done.
yeah,
What does success look like? And what is it within scope? Everybody should understand that.
yeah,
At the lowest level, they should read it and understand it so that they know what their scope is and what they're supposed to be doing. Because then when a client oversteps, they can either come to you or tell the client themselves, if you want me to do that, talk to my boss.
yeah. And like you said, there's always exceptions to that rule. You can step outside there if it's a 10-15 minute deal or whatever. That's not a big deal. You're making them happy. But it's if you do that too often, they're going to start taking advantage, like
Yeah.
what you said. You have to let them know, like, hey, this is not something we typically do. I'm doing it. I got it approved. Even if you didn't get it approved, always say something like that. But it is
Yeah.
a one-off thing. It's a one-time thing. We're doing it because we think we can get it done quick, but it's not something we're going to be able to do in the future.
Well, and that's something I even used to do in the Air National Guard. Not to the effect of approval, but I worked help
Yeah.
desk in the Air Force, and I had a bunch of friends where to call, then I basically if somebody didn't open a ticket themselves and they called in, then I'd have to go through the work of opening a ticket, starting
Yep.
it, opening all the other BS. When it was a quick fix, plus they were my friends, so I knew I was going to go down there and talk for another hour or two. I'd literally take these calls and go down and fix like 50 things in the course of like 20 minutes
Right.
and never open a ticket.
Right.
And they're like, dude, if I'd have called, it would have taken me 3 days to get this done. I'm like, yeah, but I'm here now. We're good.
Right. Yeah.
Got you, homie.
Yeah.
Like, so like there are certain things like if you know if it's a quick fix, just do it.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, you gotta let them know that I'm only doing this because, and again, in the civilian world, I got approval to do this, right? My
Right.
boss said, yeah, okay, we'll do it this one time. Um, but it's outside of scope, and let them know that.
Yep. For
As a
sure.
help desk tech, none of the work was outside of scope. It was just a matter of I didn't want to do the freaking legwork to open up a ticket and put in all the nonsense and then close the ticket for me to be the one to go back later on and do the exact same
Dude.
thing.
Right.
I already know how to fix it. I'm just going to go fix it.
Yeah.
So different situation, but same concept of like sometimes you're just going to do it because you know how to do it. because you
Yeah.
can knock it out in 30 seconds and it's going to be done
Yep.
versus going back and forth and pissing off a client because you won't do something that takes 10 seconds or 30 seconds or 30 minutes to do whatever.
Mhm. I think
Like,
that leads into another good point too, from like the leadership partnership with inside your organization is not just jumping in and I have a problem with this, not just jumping in and doing something for someone when it gets escalated to you. When you know what the fix is and you think they should have seen it, I'm horrible about it. I'll just fix it. I'll just jump in and fix it. I've had to restructure my whole mentality to say, "Hey, check out this SOP here. This is the direction you need to go," and just give them some quick notes and pass it back over to them. Because I would be incredibly horrible about just saying, "Oh, I know what it is. I can fix it in 5 minutes." But I think that's another good partnership to have with like your colleagues and stuff like that, is so you can see them grow. And again, back to the point of your buddy that you had sat down and had that conversation with of, "Hey, back the hell off the keyboard. You got to let these other guys take charge." If you continue to do all that for them and don't ever let them learn and do those type of things, they're just going to always pass that stuff over to you, and you're just going to end up being the one doing all the work.
dude, I had that problem in the Army. So, and we're coming to the top of the hour, so we're gonna do final words here in a minute. But last story. In the Army, I had my CCNA. I was fully certified in Cisco. I knew routing, switching, networking, sysadmin, help desk, you name it, I did it. I was actually stationed with Infinite and Probability AI. Um, it was fantastic. But I was an NCO. I was supposed to be training soldiers, helping my soldiers, helping them learn and grow.
Right.
But when you're dealing with SATCOM, and we were doing a lot of copy and pasting of configs and things like that, what would take them 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, especially in the field when you just want to get shit done, like to do, I could get done in 30 seconds. So what
Right.
did I do? I had them do the manual labor of, hey, just set up the satellite. And I'd go in and do what I needed to do to get the freaking shit up and running in like 30 seconds to 10 minutes, right? Depending on what type of satellite it was, sometimes it took up to 10 minutes. And I'll be off to the races. Never teaching them how I did it.
Yeah.
Never. It was just, it works, homies. Don't worry about it. We're good to go. Biggest mistake. That's where I learned to become a leader, though, because I would do that and I'd get things running.
Then you'd
And
have to fix them
then,
too.
dude, I could fix it all at that time. I
But
can't
then you
anymore.
were the only one where you couldn't, that you
Dude,
had to be there. You had
all
to
the
do
time. All the time. I
it.
used to have arguments with our back end support because they were civilians and they would hire juniors that didn't know their ass from a hole in the wall. And I would literally sit there and be like, look, just if you're not going to give me the permissions to fix this is what you need to do. Go here, then go here, then go here, then do this, then do this. Okay, now we're up and running. Thank you. See you later.
Right.
Like, I was so bad. My first year and a half in the Army, I was horrid. I was such a know-it-all and such an asshole. But like my soldiers got treated well, but they had to do like little work because I
I was
would
about to say
knock stuff out
they
in
didn't do
like no
shit.
time at all.
They loved you.
They did because they didn't have to do any work. Like I
Right.
did it all, and we'd have like the next 6 hours free.
Right.
but but yeah, man, it was just crazy. But it is coming to the top of the hour. Funny enough, Rachel just texted me. She had the time wrong. Love her to death. Well, I'll have to reschedule her back on the show. Um, with that being said, though, final words, Devin, on partnerships, breaking into cyber, anything, whatever your final words want to be,
Yeah.
let them be.
Yeah, just I think that the partnership is key on alignment and core values, like finding somebody like any partner, whether it's personal, business, all that stuff. The best partner is going to have some of the same values you do, have the same type of business mentality, have the same type of work ethic, that type of stuff. That's going to make for a good partnership. And those other people, like uh, Derek mentioned here, sometimes you just got to let them go. Clients, vendors, all that stuff. I think that's the key thing. No one to let them go, no one to hold them, no one to fold them. That's it right there.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna touch on a few different things. One, I know this is about cybersecurity and partners and stuff like that. But first, anybody who's watching, please continue to follow along. I do a bunch of videos on mental health, resilience, things of that nature. If you haven't seen it yet, I did a talk at B-Sides NOLA back on May 16th. It is on YouTube. Go ahead, check it out. Most of my content, with the exception of this show, is going to be mental health and resilience. So if you want to talk about it, if you want to get on the show and have a chat, or if you want to come on and talk cybersecurity, please let me know. I'm always looking for guests. Second thing is, on my Twitch stream, once I'm no longer recovering from surgery and have the use of both arms, I will be streaming more video games. So I will be doing Baldur's Gate 3 probably on Twitch once I'm healed up enough to actually do a stream. Finally, when it comes to partners and things of that nature and everything we've been talking about today, again, respect, trust, value add. Seriously, it can't be talked about enough. You need to be able to deliver both sides of it, while at the same time, when the values, the trust, when everything starts corroding, or when you just don't find that the respect is there as a MSSP, an organization, a vendor, it doesn't matter. Don't be afraid to fire people and get rid of them. It legitimately, if it doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. Sometimes the business value just isn't there. Otherwise, look, it's been a fantastic episode. I'm gonna take next week off because it's mine and my wife's anniversary on the 5th, so we're gonna go out on the 6th. Otherwise, we'll be back the week after that. I love you all. Take care, and I promise, Security Happy Hour will be back the following week, and I'll talk to you all next time.